The moment I stepped back into the living room, my entire world seemed to stop. My wife emerged from the hallway with three strangers behind her, her face pale, her eyes filled with emotions I couldn't understand. Every conversation at the party faded into silence inside my mind. The laughter, the music, the clinking of glasses, all of it disappeared as I wondered whether I was about to lose everything I had spent years building. Some moments divide your life into before and after, and I knew without a single word being spoken that this was one of them. Before we continue, if you believe in kindness, forgiveness, and second chances, please take a moment to like this video, comment where you're watching from, share this story with someone you care about, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us continue bringing meaningful stories that touch the heart. My name is Ryan, and my wife Sarah had always been the strongest person I knew. We lived in a quiet neighborhood outside Denver, Colorado, where life moved at a comfortable pace. We had been married for 8 years, and although we had faced the ordinary struggles of marriage, our love had survived every challenge. At least, that was what I believed before that unforgettable evening. The party was meant to celebrate Sarah's promotion at the hospital, where she had worked for nearly a decade. Friends, neighbors, and co-workers filled our home with smiles and congratulations. She looked happier than I had seen her in years, but every now and then, I caught her staring toward the hallway with an expression that seemed almost fearful. I asked if everything was all right, but she simply smiled and squeezed my hand before asking me for a small favor. She wanted me to run across the street to borrow a folding table from our neighbor, because more guests had arrived than expected. It sounded simple enough, so I left without giving it another thought. The walk took less than 10 minutes. I joked with our neighbor, carried the table back, and imagined Sarah laughing when she saw me struggling to fit it through the front door. Instead, I stepped inside and found everyone strangely quiet. Their attention was fixed on the hallway. Then Sarah appeared, followed by 3 people I had never seen before. An older man with silver hair, a middle-aged woman wiping tears from her eyes, and a young man who looked nervous enough to run back outside. Confusion turned into fear. My thoughts raced through every terrible possibility. Were these relatives she had hidden from me? Had she been keeping some enormous secret? Had our marriage been built on lies? I searched her face for answers, but all I found was trembling determination. Sarah slowly walked toward me, holding a small envelope in her hands. She looked as though she had carried its weight for years. She explained that before we met, she had been involved in a devastating car accident. It happened during a snowstorm while she was driving home from college. She survived with only minor injuries, but another family lost someone they loved. Although the investigation ruled the accident unavoidable because of the weather, Sarah never forgave herself. She spent years blaming herself for a tragedy no court believed was her fault. The 3 strangers standing behind her were the family of the man who had died that night. I felt the room grow even quieter. Sarah confessed that for years she had secretly written letters to them. Most were never mailed because she feared reopening old wounds. But several months earlier, after years of counseling, she finally sent one. She expected rejection. Instead, she received a response unlike anything she imagined. The older man introduced himself as Michael, the father of the young man who had died. The woman beside him was his wife, Rebecca. The younger man was their surviving son, Nathan. They admitted they had carried anger for many years, but over time they realized that hatred had stolen enough from their family. Sarah's letter had not erased their pain, but it had shown them that she had suffered in silence every single day since the accident. For months they exchanged letters, sharing memories, tears, and questions they had never dared ask. Eventually, they agreed to meet privately. That first meeting was filled with crying, apologies, and long moments where no one could find the right words. Yet somehow, those broken conversations slowly became healing ones. I stood frozen as Sarah admitted she had hidden all of this from me because she wanted to be certain the family truly wished to meet before involving anyone else. She feared disappointing me if they changed their minds. She feared reopening wounds that might never close. Most of all, she feared I would see her differently if I knew how deeply she blamed herself. Instead of anger, I felt overwhelming sadness. 8 years of marriage, and the woman I loved, had carried this burden alone, while smiling through birthdays, holidays, and ordinary mornings over coffee. The secret had never been about betrayal. It had been about shame. Michael stepped forward and handed me a photograph of his late son. He said something that changed me forever. He explained that forgiveness does not erase loss. It simply refuses to let loss become the only story that survives. The room filled with tears as friends quietly embraced one another. Some guests had no idea what was happening, yet everyone seemed to understand they were witnessing something incredibly rare. Pain was not disappearing, but it was no longer standing alone. Compassion had finally entered the room. That evening became less about celebrating Sarah's promotion, and more about celebrating the courage it takes to face the past. We shared dinner together. Stories replaced silence. Laughter slowly returned. Michael described his son's sense of humor. Rebecca spoke about family traditions, and Nathan admitted he had almost refused to come because he feared the meeting would only reopen old scars. Instead, he left feeling lighter than he had in years. As the guests departed, Sarah rested her head against my shoulder and whispered that for the first time since that snowy night, she believed tomorrow could be different from yesterday. I realized healing rarely arrives with dramatic miracles. More often, it begins with one letter, one honest conversation, and one decision to believe that broken hearts can still find peace. Life after that evening wasn't suddenly perfect. Grief still existed. Memories still hurt. But those memories no longer carried only guilt and bitterness. They carried understanding, compassion, and hope. Sarah became more open than ever before, and our marriage grew stronger because there were no more hidden burdens between us. Sometimes the greatest act of love is not pretending the past never happened. It is choosing to walk through it together, even when every step hurts. Real forgiveness asks for courage from everyone involved. And when that courage finally appears, it can transform lives in ways no one expects. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, share it with someone who may need hope today, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment to help these stories reach more people who need encouragement. Special request, before this story ends, please comment with the words, "Forgiveness heals," if you believe that kindness and compassion can change even the most broken lives. That night, I thought I was walking back into a party. Instead, I walked into the moment that taught me love is not measured by the absence of pain, but by the willingness to carry one another through it. And sometimes, the strangers we fear the most become the people who remind us that even the deepest wounds can begin to heal when forgiveness finally finds its way home.